Welcome to the Aro Benaiah Show. Today's guest is Harkay, a tropical design and decor expert, blogger, and podcaster. Tom is the founder of Cerulean Bay and hosts Tropical Escape at Home, where he shares ideas, inspiration, and practical strategy for creating authentic tropical retreats in your home. Whether it's a cozy corner or a full-scale makeover, Tom shows how to bring the trop to your daily life without leaving home. It's really a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting for me. I love doing these kinds of shows.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Tom, what was it like growing up for you?
Well, for me, I'm first generation American. So even though I'm originally from San Diego, California, I didn't grow up the way a lot of typical Americans grow up here. My father was Hungarian, my mother was French Canadian. So there was a lot of that influence in the household. And I have two brothers and a sister, and we grew up speaking French in the house at an early age. And my dad tried teaching us Hungarian, but that was very, very hard to learn. So that didn't work. But there was just a lot of European friends and family. My mom ended up having a lot of family from Montreal that came to San Diego. And I went to Catholic school. I had the Irish nuns growing up there. And, you're meeting friends back in San Diego as a kid. But there was always that little bit of a difference that, I didn't grow up with the football and the baseball and the American sports and things that a lot of American parents were having their children do. We didn't do that. There was always kind of that little awkwardness, I guess, growing up. And I mean, over the years that disappeared, getting into my teenage years and stuff. Yeah, just a very international influence. And then doing things like getting married at 22, which maybe that works for some people, but it was a mistake for me. And I ended up living in Switzerland for 4 years. So, and then living in San Francisco after that. And today I'm in Houston, Texas. So I've been around, not always by choice, but when I go back to California, that foundation that I had, my parents were very good parents. They worked very hard for what they had. My mother was not a college graduate. And then dealing with the language barrier, they both showed up in the US. Really, I don't think my mother's English was that great when I was a kid. So there was that struggle there. My dad had no clue how to fit in with the average American dad, but they tried. The core of that whole thing is that they were a very central force. They kept us very grounded. They loved us as kids, but it was hard. There was never a lot of money in the house. I did not grow up in a wealthy household at all. So, yeah, I mean, if that answers your question, we kind of made it up as we went along.
I really do. I really do. So, what was this early experience where you get to work? What was this your first nature of job? Because I discover growing up, most entrepreneurs get to do one or two couples of jobs that shaping their ideas about entrepreneurs. What was this couples of job you did before starting your career?
Well, I think it took a while for that to come about because some people know at a very early age what they want to do, or they have a very good idea of it. And then they pursue that in school and they might spend some time studying it. And then they figure out, well, that's not really for me. But then they have a backup, a plan B. With me, I never really knew what I wanted to do as a kid. I thought that maybe it would be in business somehow. I've always loved homes and construction, so maybe I thought it would be architecture. But even though I was good in some forms of math, the math that you need in architecture and things like that, I was not good at. So that's where I started to love home design as a kid, but never really was able to do anything with it. And then with just moving around and all of the things that go with that, you kind of take the first job that you can get. Starting out, working in a clothing store and then working at SeaWorld, the big aquatic park over there in San Diego. And geez, from there, I moved to LA. I've lived in LA 3 different times. I had family there. I worked for ABC Television in Hollywood when I was 19, then moved to Europe and worked for the airlines and then worked for banking. And so that whole thing with the home design was always in the back of my mind, though. And it really came to being after I got married. I was about 30 when I got married, and I've been married for 30 years, so that tells you how old I am.
Wow.
But when we had my first son, I have 3 boys. They're all in their 20s. My oldest is turning 30 this year. That you have to have a paycheck. Obviously, when you're married and you have kids, your family comes first. But that was where the whole entrepreneurial thing really started to come about, because by then I had worked in a number of industries. I had a number of managers and bosses, and some of them were really nice people. They really knew what they were doing. Others were not so nice and they were horrible. But I've always had a very independent spirit. And I remember that as a kid, I didn't really know how to identify it. And as a teenager, I was probably too independent. And, you just make some stupid decisions as you're growing up because you learn as you go. But yeah, I would say it was in 1995. I know when it was, and there was a book that I had read about business, and I thought, I want to own my own business one day. But then how do you go about that? And then what is the business going to be about? And I carried that around for about 20 years, not knowing what to do with it, always having to work for my family because I did. And the bulk of that was in real estate and in mortgage. And I've done everything in real estate, from handling the mortgage loans to being a realtor and helping people buy and sell here in the US. It was, when you're carrying an idea like that around for about 20 years, it's real when it never leaves your mind. It's always in the back of your head. And I just never really knew what I was going to do with the business, because working in the mortgage industry, when everything fell apart here in the US back in 2007, everybody was out of work in the real estate and mortgage. It was bad. And so living in Houston, I had a friend who was able to get me into the oil and gas industry. And, energy is very big in Houston. And actually, that's where I really started getting introduced to Nigeria and what goes on there as a country in oil and gas, because I've worked for Shell, I've worked for ExxonMobil, I worked for Chevron, and I met a lot of cool people actually who are from Nigeria that work there. And then living here in Houston, there's a huge Nigerian community here. One of my good friends is Nigerian. In fact, she's setting up a big lunch in January. A bunch of former coworkers. There's a Nigerian restaurant that she likes, so we're going there in January. So I've never been to a Nigerian restaurant, so I'm looking forward to it. But, not to get off the subject here, when the boys got older, I thought, it's time to do something with this. And my wife and I, raising a family, we were never really able to travel a lot, having the kids, and, budgets were tight. But what really set the whole thing off for me was we went to Fiji in 2017. We were supposed to go with some friends, and then they couldn't go. We had tickets. We couldn't get an airline refund. So we went. And it was amazing. I mean, I have the whole story about it on my website at ceruleanbay.com. We were flying home on the plane, and I thought, this is not going to be just a trip that we check off the bucket list. Like here in the US, a lot of people have a bucket list. It's all these things you want to do before you die. Most people never get to do them because most Americans are horrible about traveling. They don't prioritize it enough. But while we were there, we stayed at a very nice resort. It's a journey to get there. But most of the people at the resort lived in a little village 5 minutes away on another island, and they just took a little boat. And I did not know that Fiji had the poverty that it has. And when you go away from the resorts, it's pretty rough living for some people. I was shocked at what I saw. I'm like, wow. I mean, I grew up 30 minutes from Mexico, from Tijuana, and I've seen a lot of poverty in Mexico. And I've traveled a bit in some other countries and have seen some rough conditions, but you just don't expect it in Fiji, And I thought, these people, for the resort, there are artists that live there and they produce beautiful artwork, hand carved woods, hand blown glass. I'm just really, really nice things. And we took the little village tour, and then you end up in the community center. And, as a tourist, you can buy some things. And my wife and I, we were just like, oh my God, this is wonderful. We just wanted to buy it all and bring it back with us. And during the tour, we found out that there were some things that the little village was trying to do with the island to prevent erosion and flooding whenever they had cyclones and things like this that came through, but they didn't have the money. So they would sell these things to try to build the money for their little projects. And I thought, what a neat way to help people directly is to look for imported artwork and handicrafts and things like this, bring it back for resale in the States, and you're dealing directly with the artists, and it goes directly to their villages where you can help them. So that's where the spark for the entrepreneurship really came about. And I thought, this is really cool. I want to do this. And I mean, to make a very long story short, we focused on Fiji. I wanted to start getting into other islands in the South Pacific. And then eventually get into other tropical regions around the world. Tropical Africa has beautiful artwork. I've seen some things. I've been to some trade shows here in the US, and importing is always a challenge, but we had our plan in place, and we bought our samples primarily from Fiji, and we had everything ready to go. We built the website, and then COVID hit. Talk about putting the brakes on everything really fast. I mean, with COVID, everything stopped. We couldn't import anything. The people in Fiji couldn't get the materials they needed to produce their artwork. They were cut off from everything. Most people there know how to farm. They do local farming for themselves, or they'll do farming for the community. Most of the artists I had met had to go back to farming. And, so it kind of killed everything for a little bit there. So I put the idea away again in the back of my head, went back to work outside as soon as we could. I think that's when I started working for Exxon. And again, I always said, I'm not letting this die. We're going to pick this up. COVID can't last forever. And so as things started to get back to normal, I ended up getting a better position over at Chevron and kept going there until I decided to leave last year. And since then, we relaunched the website. I worked with a web designer, and we added a lot of blog content, and it's all about tropical design, how to create tropical escapes at home, how to connect your vacation experiences to a specific area in your home, and just about different resorts, whether we've traveled to them or not. I do online reviews for resorts. We do a lot of research for people who are thinking of traveling. And we also encourage people to visit these websites, even if you're not planning to go, for inspiration. I think at the heart of everything I'm doing, it's all about inspiration. And what is it that makes you feel peaceful and relaxed, no matter what your work is? And I know your show focuses primarily on blue collar trade and just what people can do to get that work-life balance. What I found is it's pretty bad in the white collar world too. It really is. You can be sitting at a desk in some fancy office, making a lot of money, but you're sitting on your rear all day for 10 hours, never getting up, never moving, gaining weight as you get older. It's bad for your health to sit all day. So we encourage people to do something about that. So that's kind of a long story. I definitely don't want to take up all your time.
Amazing, amazing. I think the story is from you starting out, despite you have more like lucrative parts when it comes to career, and you being able to kind of let go and focus on. Yeah,
Thank you. Well, and for your listeners, everybody works hard. To me, it doesn't matter where you live on this planet. People who are working, that's what it is. It's work. And for some people, it's very, very hard physical work. For other people, it's very hard mental work. And I think for most people, there's never enough money attached to that. And then life just has a way of throwing more curveballs at you, just surprises that come your way for some people. Other people, it's kind of a very routine thing, but you still have your bills to pay. You have family issues that come up. There's illnesses that happen, things at home that break. There's always money that needs to go out the door. And people don't focus enough on themselves. And there is a real wellness factor to that. I think when you spend so much time working and you don't take a proper vacation, and I don't know how vacations are viewed locally where you are, but I did live in Europe for 4 years. And with my dad being European, I was very familiar with a lot of European mindsets. And, I have family today that lives in Belgium, and I know how they're doing and their concepts of vacation. It's very different. In the Europe, vacation is not something that you earn. It's something that you need. And in Switzerland, people got 4 and 5 weeks vacation from the receptionist answering the phone to the owner of the company and everyone in between. Here in the US, vacation is something you earn, and I think it's horrible. It's been like that my life, where some people only get a week, they get 2 weeks, and then after 5 years or 8 years, they get 3 weeks. And, I've working in oil and gas, I've met many people who've been with the same company for 20, 30, 40 years, so they have lots and lots of vacation accrued. They never take it. If they do, it's maybe 2 weeks around the holidays. Maybe they're taking a trip once over the summer, but they have all this vacation piled up that carries over year to year to a point where they don't even use it anymore because now you've got so much vacation time built up, but they're working and they finally do take a vacation, but they're taking their laptop. I'm like, no, leave the laptop at home. So that was another reason why Tropical Escapes at Home came about was when you do take that magical, wonderful tropical vacation, here in America, people are very quick to just run to the beach, run to the pool bar and grab a drink, and not really pay attention to anything around you. Me, I'm pay attention to what do you see? What do you hear? When you first arrive at the hotel, look at the landscaping, look at the architecture of the building, look at what people are wearing. When you get in the lobby, what music is playing? What do you smell? A lot of hotels, they have very nice scents and aromatherapy going on, beautiful artwork on the walls. Then when you do get out to the pool or at the beach or wherever you're going, pay attention to what's around you, the colors, the sounds. There's so much inspiration around you that you can make notes of on paper or on your phone or take a lot of pictures, because then this is what happens. People get home. Oh, hey, how was it? It was great. We did this and we did that. Well, what was your favorite part? Well, I don't know. It was just nice to be at the beach. I'm like, really? You're going to go halfway around the world to Bali and that's what you come home with? I mean, to me, that's terrible. So I'm like, build Bali at home, build Fiji at home, and you do it. And that's what we have on our website. We have a whole interior design course on there. And this kind of connects a little bit with how Amy Barrickman, it was funny, she and I did not know each other before the call, but we were both kind of doing the same thing. She wrote her book to kind of create a do-it-yourself method for people. Me, I have a whole online program, which is a do-it-yourself thing, because we find that when you are very hands-on and you get involved with the creation, instead of just hiring a bunch of people to do it for you, if you have that kind of money, most people don't. When you are actually involved with the creation of your own tropical escape and you have the information you need that makes it authentic, it's not a jumbled mix of things that you've pulled together that you think are tropical. It's based on what you've seen. It's cultural authenticity, depending on the country that you've been to, things that you fell in love with when you were there that you've captured, now you can bring home, and you can use that in the color on your walls, the furniture that you decide to get, the artwork, the rugs on your floors, whatever it is. There's a lot that you can do yourself. And I'm all about saving money. And you can save yourself a lot of money. And in the courses that I have there, I describe how you bring in people like Amy or other interior designers when you're either really stuck or now you're going to get involved in things that involve, removing walls or removing doors and adding sliding doors, or here's this wall here and I need to put a window in there. Unless you're very trained and you know what you're doing and you can do that, that's when it's worth it to pay an interior designer or you start bringing in the contractors. But, if you're not going to go that far, to create your own tropical escape at home, when you follow the information we have available for you, you can do it all yourself. Save yourself a ton of money and it's yours at the end of the day. That's the best part, because you get designers, and I've worked with designers and contractors and lots of people. They start bringing in their own ideas and they're good ideas, but are they what you want to see? So I focus on all of that online.
With this. Thank you, Tom. So how do you balance tropical beauty, comfort, and practicality in interior design?
So bringing in beauty and practicality, it really depends on what it is you want. You have to look at what those things mean to you. One of the things that we have available online, I call it the Tropical Self-Discovery Assessment, which answers questions exactly like that. They're basically all of the questions that an interior designer would ask you, and they're going to charge you $200 or $300. Here, you can get them for $29 on my website. When you're looking at beauty, a lot of people can't really define exactly what that means. They have an idea of what they want to do in one particular room, and they know they want something tropical, but what is that? So in the assessment that we have, we take you through everything with questions that examine the current use of the room. What do you love about it? What do you not love about it? What is the lifestyle in the room? How is that room being used? Is it being used by you? Do you have children? Do you have pets? Is it just you? What are the things that you want to do to change in those things to make it more for you, to make that beauty come alive? And then we take you through the colors and your preferences, what inspires you in nature when it comes to things like the weather and the plant life and construction. And there's just a whole list of things. There's about 69 questions in there. that we really get people to think about, to define what is it that you love about the tropics and what is it that you don't. That way, the things that you don't like, you put those all aside, you focus on what you do like, there's your beauty. And then the practicality of it is so that you end up with an end result that this room is your escape. I approach everything as having a place to go in your own home in between vacations that is your own private tropical escape. It's yours. You can close the doors. The rest of the family is out there. They're not allowed in. If you live alone, even easier because you don't have to worry about any intrusions. But it's taking the design influences, cultural influences, and incorporating that into that space as much as possible so that when you can't get on a plane and go, at least you're looking at the colors that they use. You have artwork that's from there. You have decor and accessories that are from there. Maybe you've got tropical plants that are very common there that now you're growing. And it doesn't matter where you live. You can live in a very cold climate, a very warm one. When you're indoors, you can furnish it and create it to the extent that you want to remind you, to bring you back to that place. That's why I tell people, pay attention to what you smell. Aromatherapy is a big thing. I mean, I'm not an aromatherapy expert, but my wife, when she smells something that she likes, she's going to go and find it in a reed diffuser or in a spray or something like this. You can do that if the sounds are what you really like. Get a really good Bluetooth sound system and create that kind of thing. Incorporate a water feature. So you've got trickling water or cascading water. Go to YouTube. On YouTube, there's all kinds of really nice nature-based videos where you can get 2 and 3 hours of nothing but the tropics and the rainforests and all kinds of things. When you pull all of that together, you are in a place that is going to promote wellness and relaxation, mental rejuvenation, and especially for entrepreneurs. When you're an entrepreneur, usually there's no paid time off, there's no sick time. If you don't work, you don't get paid. If you're not putting in it every day, you're not making money. It's hard. And then when you get to a point where you can start hiring people and you're putting together a little team, now you're babysitting because at the end of the day, that's what it is. Even when you have really good team members that you can depend on, you still got to make sure that the work's getting done and, nobody's going off the rails. So being an entrepreneur is super hard. Have that place at home where it reminds you of your favorite place. And I even tell people, even if the tropics aren't your thing, what is? Where do you go when you go on vacation? And why do you go there? What is it that you love about it? Define that. Put it into little components that you can get online and search for or go to the store and look for and build it at home. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. That's my approach. Here in the US, there's people, they spend a fortune on tropical travel, I mean, to get to Tahiti or, I know of places like the Seychelles and Mauritius and the Maldives. And, I know of places, I'm very familiar with Zanzibar in Tanzania. I'm very interested in places that the average American doesn't know about because there's a lot of people who cannot pick these countries out on a map. And I think that's very sad. They don't teach you in school. So I try to bring those to people in blog posts, in my YouTube videos. Even if I can't go, I'll do the research online. I review the resorts. I put all this together in imagery so that people can go, here's the top 5 adults only resorts in Zanzibar, and this is what you should look for if you decide to go. If you like what you see, a lot of resorts have gallery pages where they've got beautiful professional imagery of their resorts and the activities and things. Use that as your inspiration. And in the whole home design guide that we have online, we show you how to do that. There's 12 different sections that walks you through everything from, the vision planning and the budgeting, color palettes, color psychology, how to measure everything like a pro. And then we get into tropical furnishings, artwork, decor, what to look for, where to buy it. That's another thing. Here in the US, pre-owned, I think it's a very big thing here, pre-owned clothing or anything, furniture. I mean, you have thrift shops and you have consignment stores and estate sales. A lot of people overlook these things. You can find beautiful things to create your tropical escape at home, to create that beauty, practicality because it's easy on your budget, Buying new in the US is expensive. I don't know how it is everywhere else, but whoa, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's gotten very expensive here to buy new things at this. And I tell people, I have a whole blog post, the difference between a thrift shop, a consignment shop, and estate sales. And I don't know if where you are, if they have estate sales, but here in the US, they're a gold mine. You literally go to somebody's home, everything in the house is for sale. Maybe the people that lived there passed away. Maybe they just want to change their design style and they're getting rid of everything. The kids are grown and gone, and now the owners are ready to downsize, and so they hire a little company to come in, they price everything in the house. You can find beautiful things, and when it comes to cultural pieces, that's where you can really find a lot of authenticity, because you can, if you're lucky enough to find a sale where people have traveled, and maybe they've traveled to the places that you like, and they did some shopping, and now there's things in the house that they're selling. There you go. You didn't even have to go to the country to get it. It's right there in your neighborhood.
Are there specific colors, texture, or material that are essential in creating a tropical feel?
Oh, okay. Well, typically in most tropical cultures, there's going to be a lot of bold colors. There's, obviously you have a lot of blues. Blue is typically the primary color because it's the color of water. It's the color of the ocean. And you can go to certain beaches where, you have the beautiful turquoise water. What people who really pay attention notice that in the water, there's maybe 12 shades of blue in there. And I've got a picture on my website that shows this where, okay, you love the color blue. Which blue do you like? And again, I get people to focus and narrow down. I introduce them to the color spectrums and the blues and the greens. Greens are going to be another big color because of tropical plants, all the foliage, the rainforests, the jungles, the palm trees, all of this. When you go to resorts, public parks, places like this, there's lots of plants and trees. There's a lot of different shades of greens. Then you're going to get into the reds and the oranges, pinks because of the flowers, yellows because of all the different flowers for people who like flowers and floral things. If you live in a country where you have a lot of wildlife, brightly colored wildlife, and you like animals, now you're looking at flamingos, the toucans, different birds, parrots, lots of beautiful color there. And what I help teach people do is when you are in the US, there's a lot of people here that are not into bold colors or they're not familiar with it because American culture, I think as a whole, is not very color based. It's more entertainment based. It's more food based. You know, you know what the US is famous for in Nigeria. If you really take a look at it, a lot of it doesn't revolve around color at all. So a lot of Americans they're afraid to use color. That's why when you go into a lot of homes here, they're very boring when you go inside. Everything's white, everything's beige, everything's gray. I walk in and I'm like, we need to brighten this up a little bit. So you get into those color palettes and then we teach you how to use as little or as much of it as you want. You can have a very neutral room where you've got hardwood floors, maybe, or ceramic tile or something like this, and your walls are in a very neutral color. So you're looking at the different tans and browns, different shades of whites and creams. But now you've got a piece of artwork that's full of blues and greens and bright colors on the wall, and it brings in a nice pop of color. That's what we call it. And maybe that's enough for you. Maybe you've got some nice art pieces that sit on tabletops or, they just tabletop surface type of decor. Maybe that's enough for you. So we get into detail too about the whole minimalism versus maximalism. Some people are minimalists. They don't want a lot of stuff in their room, very little furnishings, very little artwork, a lot of open space. Other people are maximalists, which I think in a lot of tropical colors or tropical decor, it tends to go that way because you have not only a lot of colors, but now you've got a lot of pieces. You've got really interesting wood carvings and you've got furniture that's maybe, if it's from Bali or it's from the Philippines, Southeast Asia, it's a lot of ornate carvings and rounded surfaces and things like this. Whereas if you go to some other countries like Latin America, Costa Rica, it's more streamlined, it's more linear, the furniture is not as fancy, it's not as decorative, but you still have a lot of color, you have a lot of woods, you just have a lot of pieces there. So we teach people about minimalism, maximalism, and the art of decluttering when you have too many things. when you have too many things and now it's detracting, it's taking away from your overall view. You think you've decorated a room beautifully, but what if there is literally too much stuff? Somebody who's never seen the room, they come in and they don't know where to look because everything's competing for attention. There's this big artwork, but then there's this over here and there's that over there. We introduce the concept of focal points. When you have a focal point or an anchoring piece, they're both basically the same. That's your centerpiece in the room, and then you build everything around that. And a lot of times the focal point is like a beautiful window. It's a fireplace, maybe an architectural feature that's built into the room that you can't remove. So in the tropical world, there's a lot to balance, and we help guide people through that. And again, a lot of it is based on what you do too. What did you see online that you really liked? Copy that. There's something about it you really liked, and we help people identify that.
And thank you, Tom. So,
Hmm.
can you share some of your favorite tropical getaway for adult, family, and honeymoon?
Hmm. Well, I do. We're not a travel agency, but I do promote travel a lot. I was a travel agent a long time ago, briefly. And as I said, I've worked for the airlines and I love travel. Absolutely love it. But for people who don't really travel a lot for whatever reason, I bring the travel to them. And I do have a section on our website. It's a smaller one for destination weddings because I think that is a great way to introduce people to tropical cultures or foreign cultures, honeymoons as well. People who travel go someplace interesting because here in the U.S., a lot of people they'll spend a lot of time and money planning a honeymoon, but then they end up at a big, huge hotel like a Marriott or a Sheraton or just a big global brand. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just find that you are limiting yourself when you do that. If you go to a country, and I'm sure in Nigeria it's the same, there's probably some beautiful locally owned resorts that are authentic. Maybe they're family owned, or maybe it's a Nigerian company that owns it, but it's not a big international something where now you've got all that global influence coming into it, which to me then waters it down. You start to lose the beauty of Nigeria or whichever country you're in. So for honeymoons, destination weddings, even adults only, for people that really want to get away, I look at the family owned resorts. I have a number of them reviewed online, and where I couldn't really find family owns, I'll start going into the bigger ones, but I'll look at who they are. I look at who owns these hotels. In Thailand, it's a good example actually. There are some Thai companies, big conglomerates, they're huge, but they own a number of resorts in Thailand, but they're only in Thailand. So that's a good thing because now it's very Thai influenced. You're not going to have a lot of American influence or European influence getting in there and getting in the way. That's why when I tell people who are going to Fiji, there is an area on the main island there close to the airport called Denaro. It's full of hotels. I tell people go to Denaro. This is full of the Marriotts and the Sheratons and the Hiltons and things like that. You can see that anywhere. We found our resort through Costco Travel, and there are some travel agencies that if you find a really good travel agency that knows the different resorts in a place like Fiji, we said we want something that's authentic Fijian and it's locally owned. And we ended up going to a place called Matangi Private Island, and it's owned by an Australian family. They actually own the island. They've owned it for over 100 years. They built a resort probably 30 or 40 years ago. It's been updated since, and it is beautiful. Oh my gosh. But you land in the main island, you fly out of Los Angeles, 10 and a half hours to get to Fiji, connect to a little tiny turboprop for 90 minutes, and they fly you to another little island, which is a little airstrip. And then from there, a person from the resort takes your things, puts you in the truck, and you go down a bumpy dirt road for 20 minutes through the bush. You don't know where you're going. They say they're taking you to the boat dock. Well, you get to the boat dock, and it's a little metal boat, which is a pile of rocks, and someone from the resort is in the boat. They take your bags and things, and then you're on this amazing 20-minute boat ride to the island. So it's a journey to get there. But when you get there, oh my God, the Fijian people are just wonderful, just lovely people. They're playing their little guitar, they have their welcome song, they're clapping on the shore. You see them in the boat, you're still far away, but you see them on the island. and they're welcoming you and they have the coconut and it's just 5-star treatment all the way. Again, full of inspiration. Why would I go all the way to Fiji, come home, and then forget about a trip like that? Oh, I have pictures. Maybe I can look at the pictures. No, I want to keep living that at home in some way until I can get back to Fiji again. So I tried to do this in the blog posts we've written about honeymoons, the destination weddings. Try to just go beyond that. It's very easy to get caught up in weddings and, just the whole concept of getting married. You've got your friends and family that are traveling out there. While you're there, carve out just a few days to get away from the resort. Go visit with the local people. Go to the non-touristy places. That's what we love. Obviously, safety is an important thing, and every country in the world has its problems, and there's places tourists shouldn't go. I mean, the US is full of that. There's a lot of places you don't go here as a tourist. But, you do your research, you be careful. The resort will guide you to wherever you are to go to places that are safe where you can just meet with locals, meet local artists. People will go buy souvenirs. This is a good example on honeymoons. They go and they buy souvenirs. Oh, I got this really cool piece in Fiji or wherever I was. I'm like, did you meet the artist? Well, no, I couldn't. Did you at least find out who the artist was? Maybe they have a website. Maybe they're on Facebook. And this is a tip for your listeners. Anybody who's traveling and finds art and you want to contact the artist, most of them around the world are on Facebook. A lot of them don't have professional websites. But for our little online store and the artwork that I've imported, it's all been done through Facebook. So you can meet some cool people there. But you got to find out who the artist is. And then who does the artist know? Do they know other artists that make other things? You take it a step further. And now maybe if you're still in the country and you're able to go see their artwork, now maybe you've discovered more pieces. Maybe they own a little store. Maybe you can go to their little village. If they're on Facebook, you're going to see what else they have for sale. And you just kind of connect the dots and build that little world to access other parts of that person's culture that you otherwise would never have been able to do. So that's my take on honeymoons, destination weddings. Even for adults only, I really promote adults only vacations because with kids, it's hard. I've traveled with kids. You need a vacation when you get home. And I love my boys. They're good boys. They really are. But man, you travel with kids, that to me, that's just not a vacation. For my wife, it wasn't either. We had the kids
Yeah,
had
we
fun.
end up watching them all along and all along.
Yeah. So adults only, don't feel bad. Go.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. So if
Mhm.
listeners take only one key lesson from today's conversation, what should it be to start their tropical escape journey?
Well, I think it's really to just do a little bit of self-examination first, especially if you're an entrepreneur. And, like I said at the top of the show, whether you're blue collar or white collar, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because you're tired. And only you know how much time off you're taking. Only you know how stressed out you are. Only you know what really makes you happy. Some people take vacations, some people travel, some people don't. Some people, when they take vacations, they just stay at home. That's fine too. You have to look at your wellness, how much rest and relaxation you really, really need, and look at what is it about that you really love to do, whether it's a hobby, whether it's sports, if it's traveling, whatever it is, and then focus on that and make sure you have a space at home that's dedicated to that. If you're into hobbies and you're into working with your hands, make sure you have a craft room. Make sure you have some space at home where you can do that in your off time. Get away from your work, especially if you're an entrepreneur, because when you're self-employed, it's 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It's hard. When you're at a nice job like I was in oil and gas, you can take time off and it's paid and you can forget about everything. But make sure you have that space at home. If you like to travel and you are very influenced by certain countries and cultures, focus on that. Check out what it is that you really, really like, and then create an escape based on that, your own personal retreat. Whether it's just a corner of a room or it's a whole bedroom or it's your living room, and you have pieces there that inspire you. You have sounds that inspire you. You have smells that inspire you. I even encourage people, if you're a social person and you have a lot of friends, don't spend all of your off time alone. Be social. Entertain in that. I get into the lifestyle aspect of things. Entertain in a tropical lifestyle, an authentic one. Look up real recipes that are from the country that you came from. How do those people entertain? and try and replicate that. Because after all, you just came back from that country. If you traveled and you loved it, why not do it at home to the extent that it's possible, you know? So I think that's to answer your question, I think it's just putting in people's minds that don't leave the place you traveled over there. Bring it home with you and do something with it. Never let that die. Keep it going. Even if you don't start a business, if you know, you don't have to be crazy like me and try and start a business with it because it's been hard. It's been a struggle. I mean, you know, financially, this wasn't the most financially opportune thing I could have done, but I love it. I'm going after it. I'm trying to grow it. And I know what it does, and I know other people that have traveled and then came home and continued the experience to some degree, you know? It's surprising what it can do to you, you know? So I encourage your listeners to focus on that aspect of yourself as well. Here in the US, all these big companies will talk about work-life balance. They don't practice that. They're horrible. They are horrible. I have friends, like I said, people taking laptops on vacation, people working 60, 70 hours a week, people working over the weekends when they have small kids at home. I said, "No, I'm not gonna do that. I work, I do my best, I try to be very good at what I do, whether it's my own business or not. Even being an entrepreneur, you have to set aside time for your family, especially if you have children at home." And that's really what I would encourage your guests to take away or your listeners today to take away. Focus on the work-life balance. You're gonna get older than you think. My oldest is turning 30 this year, and I cannot believe it. I still feel like he's 12. My middle one is in the process of buying a house. I'm like, "You're 27 and you're buying a house." I'm like, "Where are my little boys?" So, I have 2 that are married. My youngest is studying to be a pharmacist. He's actually at the University of Houston in their College of Pharmacy. But, you know, he's turning 26 this year. Where is my little boy? And I don't know how it is locally for you, but here Americans will retire finally in their late 60s, in their 70s, and then they start to travel. Okay, for that works for some people, but a lot of people by then they have health issues. They're too tired. Everything hurts when you get out of bed in the morning. The last thing you want to do is go sit on a plane for 12 hours. Work-life balance, I'm telling you, Arrow, it is the key to so much happiness and success in life.
Thank you, so. So, Tom, how can our audience learn more about from you and how can they do business with you and where can they reach out to you?
Well, they can go to my website, ceruleanbay.com, and people can contact me directly if they like. I have an email address. It's podcast@ceruleanbay.com. People can send me an email. I answer all of my own emails at ceruleanbay.com. I've got all of the blogs on there for people who are interested about just reading different things, whether it's the travel or interior design. And then I have a media link on there, which will take you to my podcast. So I have my own podcast, Tropical Escapes at Home, which I would love everybody to tune into. I have a YouTube channel that I started in May that I'm trying to build up, and I finally have learned how to edit video properly. So I think I'm pretty good. It's not easy, you know, but yes. So Tropical Escapes at Home. Check me out on YouTube, my podcast. I have a link to Tropical Design at Home, which is the online interior design course. So ceruleanbay.com. Go there.
Thank you for sharing your insight and practical tips on bringing the tropic into our home. For our listener who want to explore more and get inspiration, check out Cerulean Bay for blog and videos at Tom Tropical Design Program. Tropical Design at Home.
Yes,
With Tom guidance, a little tropical magic can turn any home into a sanctuary, not just a plane ticket required.
exactly. That's right.
It's really a pleasure that we.
Well, this was fun, Arrow. Thank you so much for having me.